rules clear. Your goal is to remove all of the blocks, which I probably won't succeed in doing. I haven't played in a long time, but I would like to show you one other rule, but I may fail to do so. This kind of checkerboarding, not so good. Don't do that when you play. Also very bad. Okay. The one rule, which I won't demonstrate here, is if you clear a column, then these guys just sort of eat the column. They just move closer to each other. And I think usually the right moves to the left one step. Okay, so that's here's a successful execution from the Clickomania website, but I have done it a few times. Haven't in a long time. The only rule is the group that you click on, the connected color chunk, has to be of size greater than 1. Otherwise, you could just keep clicking on everything. So that's why the checkerboarding is bad. Because there you have singleton guys. So you may have some singleton guys, but if you're careful, you sometimes can get rid of them. The question is, when can you? And the answer is NP complete. So this was actually my first NP hardness proof, I think ever, definitely of a game. I think ever. So there's a few results here. One is that if you have a single column, that case we can solve. A single row actually behaves the same as a single column, even though they're asymmetric in general. For when it's 1, they're the same. And if you happen to know context-free grammars, then here's the answer. It's not obvious that this is the answer, but this is saying something like, well, it could be you already solved the game, that's the empty string, or it could be you have a solvable game followed by a solvable game. You can just sort of do them separately, and if you're careful, they won't mess each other up, and then you solve the overall game. Or it could be you have a solvable game and you have the same color, one block of the same color on either side. That would also be solvable because you could just solve the center thing, then these two guys come together, and then you click that group of size 2. Or this could also happen where you solve 2 things and then 3 blocks come together. And you could also imagine other rules, but it turns out these are enough rules to capture all solvable puzzles for one column. But that's not a hardness proof, so we won't talk about it. We have 2 NP hardness results. One is for 2 columns and 5 colors, and the other one is a hardness proof for 5 columns and 3 colors. And these are the proofs. This one is 3 partition, this one is 3 sat, so we might talk about that in the 3 sat section of the class, but I'm going to focus here on the 3 partition, 2 columns, 5 colors. Open problem is whether 2 colors you can get any hardness. Question?
Is it obvious that S to SS is
No, it's not obvious that S to SS is valid. You worry that when you solve one of them, you might eat a group from the right-hand side. But you can prove it's always possible. I don't remember how that proof works, but you can check the paper. Yeah. If you ever go to the course website and watch this lecture or click around the slides of this lecture, it has links to all the papers that I'm talking about. If you ever want to
the next time around, you already have some kind of history to build on. And using Poker Tracker to analyze the interesting decision points is really a very effective way to improve your game, because the next time you come to a similar decision, you will already have some memory of what you believed to be right last time you were doing something like this. So, what makes a decision point interesting? It's interesting when you aren't sure what the right answer is. And that may seem kind of obvious, but when the expectation of the outcome is really close together, you're going to sit at the table and you're going to agonize over it. And that's where you see people on television, where they're sitting there for minutes and they're going, I don't know what to do. And those are the interesting decisions. And as you start out, you will find that you really don't know what you're doing a lot. All decision points are going to be interesting until you start to have some kind of heuristic, some kind of rubric for when to call, when to fold. So here is the situation. We are in the big blind. It's 100, 200 blinds. This is a tournament. In this tournament, it was a single table tournament. Let's say you bought in for $10. $50 goes to first place. $30 goes to second place, and $20 goes to third place. So there's 4 players left here. You have a chip stack of 1,430 chips, and the cutoff here, this player, opened all in for 5,700 chips. Player on the button folded, and this player called for 2,980 chips. So these two guys are already all in. You have ace-queen of clubs, so you're ace-queen suited, and you have 1,430 chips back in this spot. I want you to take a second, and I want you to think about this decision, whether in this spot, knowing nothing about these two players, you don't really know too much about them right now. We'll get into that a little bit later. But without knowing anything really about these guys, they're just your average players in the game. Would you be calling or folding? I want you to think about that for a second. So I'll point out another feature here. For those of you who are familiar with pot odds, your odds here are 3.35 to 1 to call. If this was a cash game, if you had 23% equity against both of those hands, you could call profitably. Obviously, this is a tournament situation, which affects things drastically right here. But yeah, so the total pot size is 4,810. We have 1,430 to call. So if you believe that this is a very easy decision, raise your hand. 1, 2. All right, we've got a few. Okay. You guys are right. If you think it's a call, I want you to raise your hand. 1 call. For the people who think it's close, if you think it's a call, raise your hand. Got a few. It's not even close. It's close. So let me talk a little bit about what's going on in this queue. This is from our ICM quiz. Poker Tracker has a feature that lets you practice in these end-of-tournament situations, which you can access through the Tools menu bar, Tools ICM quiz. And in this spot, what it's telling you is if you push based on an average player model for these two players, your equity in the tournament is 9.49%, based on the expectation of this hand against these two players when they're all in for average opponents. That means that you could expect to make $9.49 with the prize pool. If you fold, however, you have an expectation of 18.67%, and the reason for this is that it's reasonably likely that the player with 2,980 chips is going to go out, and once you do that, you are guaranteed third place. So this is a clear fold. It's even, in fact, a clear fold if you have kings. And you can go further in the Poker Tracker ICM tool. If you click the results link that's right here, it will bring up the full math, and I'm not going to go through the ICM math right now for you. I know you're going to go through that later in the course. But what you can do is you can change their ranges right here by clicking these buttons. And so I've set them to 100% range. That means these players are playing any two cards. So even if you knew before the hand, they pushed all in blind, they didn't even look at their hands. They could have any two cards, either one of them. It's still a fold, because fold equity still is close to 19%, and your push equity is 15%, even though you're going to win half of all hands against two random cards. So before we talk a little bit more about how to use Poker Tracker to analyze your game and see where you can improve, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can use Poker Tracker and not get better at poker. Because there's some great and interesting stuff in Poker Tracker that you can spend lots of time looking at that will not help you at all make a better decision. So, looking at graphs. People love looking at their results graph. And here's a nice results graph. You started off at hand 1, you had a nice run here, you went steady for a little while, you won a few big hands around hand 183,000, and then you end up about plus 860,000 euros. Now, since poker is a series of decision points, the question is, which decisions would you make differently based on this graph? And the answer is absolutely none of them. Knowing that you did this well in this spot is not going to help you make better decisions in the future. It may allow you to buy a house in the Boston area, but it will not help you actually play better poker. Another way you will not get better at poker by using Poker Tracker is by looking at hands which we call walks. A walk is when you're in the big blind and everyone folds to you. You win the small blind, which is nice, but you didn't do anything. There's no way in which you could make a better play in that hand. And I know a lot of heads-up sit-and-go players who play two-player tournaments like to look at those kinds of spots, and they want to know, well, how much am I winning there? And the answer is it doesn't matter, because you can't change your play based on who folds to you. Another thing that people want to do with Poker Tracker that won't help them get better at poker is analyzing luck. We have several tools for luck in Poker Tracker. This graph is from the cash game side. It's actually, you'll notice the normal curve. And this is actually normalized. So what you're seeing here is each dot tells you how...